That's been telling me to zip it, Michelle.
Welcome in, everyone. We're back here. It is a very special episode for us today. Mandy, long time no see. How are you doing?
I am great. Happy 2-year
There
anniversary,
we go.
Amani.
Yes, happy. So let's play some applause for us there.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 years. Let's
2
see.
years ago.
Been
Our
2
first show
years.
was 2
Yeah.
years ago today.
Yes, 2 years ago in the middle of summer. A lot has changed since then.
So
What
much.
have been some of your fondest memories of the past 2 years of doing the show together?
Oh, I like our little strategy sessions. I loved when you came down to San Diego and we were in the cabana on the rooftop of used to be Hotel Solamar. It's now Margaritaville.
Mhm.
And we made a wish list of guests that we wanted on the show, and we talked about strategy. I like our collaborations. I mean, that's the behind the scenes conversation. But I
Yes.
think I think the best things that I love about the show are just the guests that come, ready to have fun and the questions that they ask. And I think every show we learn something new. We get a little bit better. What about you?
Agreed. Just kind of the different guests we've had, that's particularly the ones that always make me laugh or blush, so that's just been fun and just learning. The minis, I love, you came up with this idea based on a conversation you had on the airport or in the
Mhm.
plane with,
Mhm.
what's our friend's name?
Candice
Oh, I
Carciopolo.
was trying to figure out
Yeah,
how to pronounce her last name.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
Candace, the minis. I like the minis. That's a cool addition. So props to you for getting that idea. So those are some of my fond memories for sure.
Yeah, okay, and so for guests that may not have seen a mini or listened to a mini, could we share what a mini is so everybody
Yeah.
knows about it?
Yes. So a mini is when Manny and I are just talking and we have a topic. It could be books, it could be goals, it could be anxiety. And we just go through a topic and it's about 10 or 15 minutes. So it's like a small little mini episode.
It's mini, and it's mostly too because Amani and I have these amazing guests that we're preparing for, and we're sinking our teeth into asking them all these questions, but we don't get to wrap up about it ourselves. We just
Yeah.
move on to the next thing. So a mini is also a time for Amani and I to reflect on, wow, that guest really gave us some nuggets that I'm actually putting into practice, or hey, here's something I'm struggling with. It's a time for us to chat with each other too. So and
Agreed.
we're actually next week we're going to be airing a mini because you'll be out of the office. So we're going to be airing a mini
Yes.
on Monday, which will be about books, which is funny because you said sometimes we talk about books or goals. The mini next week is literally about books and goals.
Yes. And I got more books I read to share. So that's good. But actually, next week, that's a good segue to our guest because next week I'll be in Denver for National Speakers Association, the Influence Conference.
Mhm.
And I remember I met this guest today. I met her. We were in Albuquerque at NSA Thrive. And I was just walking through by myself in the little in between the meetings, and she approached me and says, "Well, hey, how are you?" I said, "Well, I'm doing fine. How are you?" And then we started talking, and she was so cool and just so informative.
Oh,
And then we hopped on another call later, and we talked about business. And then I was fortunate enough to see her come talk to our NSA Las Vegas chapter, and she talked to our chapter. And no offense to the other speakers we had all year, but Michelle was my favorite one because
oh,
that's good information. So I figure we bring it to the stage now. Michelle Villalobos is coming to our stage. Welcome to the show. We give you a round of applause. So there you are.
welcome, Michelle. It's good to see you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes, yes. We're excited. And like I said, when you came and talked to us at Las Vegas NSA meeting, it was so informative. I was just so struck with your story, how you turned your story into your business, and then how you made some pivots or adjusted along the way and just continue to thrive. So I was like, we have to have her on the show. So you're here on the show. We like to go back to the beginning. And one
Okay.
of my questions is I'm really curious as to what inspired you to leave niche media and become a full-time entrepreneur.
Well, it's two separate things. What inspired me to leave niche media was I was pretty miserable. And it was a pretty, difficult work environment, let's say, um, for a lot of reasons. And so in order to mitigate that, they brought in a team called Bix and Rhoda. And Bix and Rhoda came in to lead this roundtable session for the whole company to help people get along better, to deal with some of the toxicity. And the whole time Bix and Rhoda were facilitating, all I could think was, wow, how did they start doing what they're doing? I love
Mm,
what they're doing. So that was one of the things that made me realize, like, I want to get out. I want to try something else. But I didn't go straight into what Bix and Rhoda did. As much as I was inspired, I was too scared to really make that big of a leap. So I went to another company first. And within 2 or 3 months, that was just terrible. And
Mm,
that's when I went off on my own and became an entrepreneur. And I was inspired by my friend Denise, who had just started her own PR and marketing company about a year or two before. And I saw the freedom that she had. And, I just thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it, which is kind of laughable now. I mean, I did do it, so I guess it was true, but it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Let's put it
what was the a lot harder? Like, what was so much more difficult than you could have even imagined when you first got started?
getting clients.
Mm,
In the beginning, and I also resisted it. Like I had been in sales, for many times, but for whatever reason, selling art, real estate, public, advertising, event sponsorships, that was all a lot easier than selling myself. So I had a lot of resistance, and I spent the first several months. I got one client right away, which
mhm,
was my former boss
mm.
in that in between company. And then I didn't land another client for months because I was so busy spending all my money on business cards and an office desk and all the things that you need, a website, in order to have a business, except I would not focus on getting clients because I was pretty much terrified of that
mm,
process.
okay. Yeah.
Amani, that's so do you identify with that? Like,
Amen. Yes. Yes.
how many people do we talk to that they're doing the stuff that feels okay to them, but the stuff that's petrifying to them, like approaching rejection or really putting yourself out there, people they wait on that. That's so common. So,
And what I would do that I think
yeah.
others can relate to is I would have meeting after meeting after meeting, and I would give all my best ideas in my meetings. And then I'd be so scared to make an offer I'd be, oh, I'll send you a proposal. And then I'd spend like 7 hours writing a proposal and changing the number at the bottom of the proposal and then not sending it and then re-editing it. And then I'd send the proposal 3 or 4 days later, or 6 or 8. And then, of course, crickets,
Yeah.
and it's just such a horrible, not horrible. It was such an ineffective process.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah.
Over to you, Mandy.
Well, you talk a little bit about your long dark night of the soul
Mm,
as a moment that changed everything for you. So could you share that story with us and then how that moved momentum for you?
Yeah, so I spent a good 7 years doing it this way, like up roller coaster revenues, no real discernible business model to speak of beyond like anything I can do to make a buck. Um, so 7.5 years in, I was making money. At the end of the year, if you looked at the tax return, you'd think I was doing pretty well. But number one, my expenses were out of control. Number two, it was super unpredictable revenue. One month I'd make 25,000, another month I'd make zero. So that's was very hard on me emotionally, mentally, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, like, yeah, just that up and down. And so 7 years in, I had kind of a 1, 2, 3 domino, which I had a health crisis, which was pretty much brought on by stress
Mm,
and all my techniques to bypass the stress and to manage, like drinking and things like that, eating poorly and working late, not sleeping enough and all that. So there was like a burnout physically. Then emotionally, I was engaged to be married, and that fell apart very dramatically from one day to the next. And it was very
mm,
public, and I was very ashamed and embarrassed. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was, because I was so sort of physically and emotionally burnt out and exhausted and you know tired, the third thing was I took my foot off the gas. And this business was not designed for me not to be constantly fueling it
mm,
required constant focus and attention, and reach outs and networking and following up and proposal writing and all that to keep it going. So the minute I took my foot off the gas, it was like immediate almost that the revenue dried up. And so that was like 1, 2, 3. And then on a more existential level, number one was my health is a very core thing to your identity. I was young and vibrant, or at least that's what I portrayed. So that fell apart. And then the second, my relationship, which I'd invested a lot of my identity into. And number three, the business. If I wasn't successful and if I wasn't making money, then I was a failure. So 7 years I'd invested in building this business, and it all fell apart. So that took a few months to hit all the way to rock bottom.
Mm,
mm.
mm.
Did you know it? Like, did you know it when it happened, or was it like this sounds like a series of events? Like what was that moment where you're like, I'm here and I'm never going back?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really know that I was in it. What I know, and this is kind of, you can see it in the book that I wrote that we might talk about later. What happened was I was not able to pull myself out of it. I
Mm,
had been in bad places before, but I'd always been able to put a mask on, smile, grit my teeth and smile through
mm,
it, you know, fake it till you make it. I'd always been able to do that. And this time I just couldn't. And so when I hit rock bottom, my parents saw it, my best friend saw it. Like for the first time ever, I was so low, I couldn't pull myself up. And I was, in tears all the time. I was just like,
mhm,
in hindsight now, what I recognize is that this is a spiritual process. It was a purging. What happened, Rumi says the wound is where the light enters, right?
Mhm. Yes.
The heart cracked open just
beautiful.
enough for things to start spilling out, and then they didn't stop. And I first processed, the health thing and the relationship thing and the business thing, but then it was like stuff from when I was younger, and lifetimes of stuff poured out. So it was an alchemical process of purging that I wasn't familiar with. Now I know about how that works, and I've done it now more conscientiously, and I practice that ongoingly. But I had never done that before. I'd never allowed myself to be seen at my weakest, at my lowest. And so there was a healing in that, and like letting my parents come and support me and help me, and just being so raw and real with anybody, really, because there was no other way. If you
Mm.
asked me how I was doing in those months, I would cry. That was
Mm,
it.
mm,
Well, I appreciate you just being so vulnerable and sharing that. I think it's gonna help so many people, and, if people were to be listening or watching this right now and they always have their foot on the gas pedal. Like they feel like they can't take it off. Or if they're in that place where you were, what is one piece of advice you would give them of something small they can do right now that might help them go to the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I call the feeling of there's something off here. I call it divine dissonance now.
Mm.
Mm.
And what it to me, what it's a signal. In the past, it was a signal to cover it up, to bypass it, right? To drink, to shop, to eat, whatever. Now I know that it's a signal to slow down, make space for that feeling and explore what is this feeling trying to tell me? What is it that I'm ignoring or trying to bypass? There's a value in the feeling of discomfort and pain or sadness, or it's misalignment. It's a signal of misalignment, in my opinion. And I think it's a good time to make space for it, to listen, to ask what is it, what wisdom is here for me, and potentially to work with somebody, a coach, a therapist. Yeah, I'm partial to coaching, because I'm a coach.
Mhm.
Um, so but some place where you can make space for that feeling to deliver its intelligence and its wisdom.
It's brilliant. So
So
good.
how were you able to recover and how were you able to get through the shame? Because shame is a very powerful emotion that sometimes people cannot get over. How were you able to do that?
You know, I think that the shame, it's all kind of connected. I think it was just being honest with people and telling them the truth. Here's what's happening. Here's where I am. So I think that was number one. And not necessarily singing it from the rooftops on Facebook or whatever, but to my parents, to my friends, and allowing myself to be vulnerable enough in intimate situations, even with new people sometimes, where the space opened for support. Like what happened was I flew to Colorado for a speaking engagement that I had booked a while before this all happened. So I went to Colorado and I met up with somebody for breakfast, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I started crying. And he said, "I know somebody that can help you, I think. Let me introduce you to Jake." Jake was his business partner at the time. This guy's name was Zach. And Zach said, "I think we can help you. We're working together to coach people. You should talk to Jake and see how it feels." So I got on the phone with Jake, and he sold me. He enrolled me in a 3-day retreat in New York City. And there was a part of me that was like, "Ugh, this is just a sales pitch." And then there was the other part of me that was like, "This guy has something that can help me. He's got medicine
Mm.
for me. I can feel it." So I trusted that. And that was kind of a new thing for me to do. And I went September 2014, flew to New York City, 3 days, 10 people. Jake led the program. And by the end of that 3 days, I had a vision and I had a
Mm.
sense of excitement about something again.
Ah,
And Jake ended up
awesome.
being my coach for the next couple years. We're still good friends to this day. And it was his coaching initially on the strategy. That's what brought me in, the 3-day event strategy that I learned from him. But ultimately, the real work that we did was the inner work. Was he is the one that got me started on meditation, on yoga. He took me to Sedona for the first time, and hiking, and I quit drinking and all the things in that 2 years.
Interesting. So I believe, when did you join NSA? When did you join NSA?
2013,
Okay.
right before all this crap hit the fan.
Okay.
And NSA for the friends at home that aren't in the speaker world is National Speakers Association.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you for clarifying that because I always
yeah.
assume.
Oh, we're
So
in
this
it.
is
We're
kind of
in it to win it.
yes, yes. It's a good segue because you joined NSA. How has NSA benefited you personally and professionally?
So many ways. I can't even begin to enumerate them all. I'd say the thing that's the most palpable right now is that it inspires me.
Mm.
It inspires me to step up my game, to master my craft, to be better. Part of it is that I have clients in NSA. And so I have to be at my best. I'm I'm just acutely aware that people talk. And I want to be somebody that they say good things about. And so it
Mhm.
inspires me to always, have high standards and to be better and to improve. And it inspires me to be a better speaker. I get excited when I see people up on that stage performing. And then I've learned so much from people there, and the relationships I've built there have been amazing. If not for NSA, my book would not exist. It was an NSA colleague that encouraged me to consider turning my poem into a book. You know, so much of my life and my business is a result of ideas or relationships that I've cultivated at NSA.
Mm.
Let's talk about your book. Tell us about your book. Tell us about what it is and what people can expect, and then I have a follow-up to that too.
Yeah, and would you believe I don't have a copy with me right this moment? I ran in here and it's in my car, but,
That's
but we can
okay.
show maybe the website or something later. But,
Yeah.
about 4 years ago, I thought it was 2 years ago, it was actually December of 2020, so 3.5 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night with a little phrase going over and over in my head, and I couldn't make it stop. It was this idea of like, she checked her wings one more time. Will they hold me steady? She grabbed her gear, climbed the hill. The time is now. I'm ready. That line was in my head. Couldn't get it to go away. Middle of the night, I wanted to go back to sleep, so I got up so I wrote it down so I could go back to sleep, but instead I just kept writing. For 2
Mm.
hours, I wrote this entire poem about this person. Actually, it was in the first person when I first wrote it. I checked my wings one more time. So I wrote it down. It was like a 20 stanza poem. I've never written a poem before in my life except for like kindergarten, roses are red, violets are blue. That's it. And I've sat down to try to write more poetry and I have not been able to. So this was a one-time sort of divine download, this beautiful poem about a girl who gets inspired, builds a set of wings, and then jumps off a cliff and flies. And on the phone with Viral Workman from NSA, he's my colleague. We co-chaired the $1 Million Speaker Group together a couple of years ago when he asked me to come speak at his event. And I said, Viral, I don't have anything for your audience. Like my stuff is very specialized. And he's like, well, don't you have like something inspirational? Some guy last time came and just he had a children's book and he talked about his children's book. And I was like, oh, I don't have a children's book, but I have this poem that seems to resonate with people. And so he's the one that,
Mm.
encouraged me to think about turning it into a book. And once I had that little bug in my ear,
Mm.
I couldn't stop. So I got an artist on Upwork. I got her to illustrate it. And now it's this beautiful 10 by 12, gorgeous printed masterpiece, honestly, that I'm really proud of and excited about.
And tell everybody the name of it and how they can find it.
It's called But I Want to Fly. But I Want to Fly. You can find it on butiwanttofly.com. You can also find it on Amazon, although it's better for me if you buy it from my website. And it's inspirational. And it's basically the dark night of the soul story, the archetypal story for all of us, the universal story of breakthrough and transformation and following, aligning your life with your dreams and your vision.
It is a beautiful the illustration is beautiful. It's all the colors I love in life, right? And it's glossy, it's beautiful. Okay, so I wanna merge on we've talked about the dark night of the soul. We know where you came from, and now you talk so much about being a superstar, right? It's like how to activate your superstardom. So, how can someone be a superstar?
So to me, what it means to be a superstar, right, is someone who is letting their inner light shine out in the world. And when I say light, I mean your gifts, your talents, your strengths, your love, your contribution. And so first and foremost, it requires, in my opinion, I made all this up, so take it with a grain of salt, it requires authenticity and alignment with your own self. So my favorite word probably in the whole English language is the word alignment, because I feel that everything that I do, everything I believe in, everything I teach and I coach people on comes back to alignment. And so kind of the metaphor that I have is that it's like a star, right? Like imagine a 5-pointed star. And at the center of the star is, because that stars, that heat and energy that you cultivate from within is what bursts out, as light in the world. And so that heat and energy within, it starts with being aligned with your true self. It starts with honoring who you really are, and your personality, your preferences, your likes, your dislikes. And I don't know about you, but the experience I had, and that many of my clients have, is one of, at a very young age, feeling that you couldn't really be truly authentically yourself. For whatever
Mm.
reason, we make up a story that in order to be loved, we have to act a certain way, be a certain way. That's often not who we really are. So that's what happened to me. I think it happens to all of us. And part of the journey of becoming a superstar is coming back to our true nature. So that's at the
Mm.
center of it. And then if you imagine like the 5 points of the star, the top point of the star kind of upward is aligning to some sort of higher purpose, something that's bigger than just you, a higher power, a purpose, a mission, whatever that is. And then if you imagine the two legs of the star, aiming down into the earth, on the one hand, the aligning to our life force energy, meaning our connection to nature and to the earth and to life, like the incarnation of being human, right? Our sleep, our food, our the walking outside, getting sunlight on our skin, like all of that. And that's something that for years I was out of alignment with, because I was like workaholic in front of a computer, hunched over for 10-12 hours a day, right? So bringing that into alignment, and then the other leg, bringing your life into alignment with your core values, like what matters to you. Like I was stuck at home, hunched over a computer all day and not traveling, not exploring the world, which is one of my highest values, right? So that's aligning to that, cultivates more heat and light in the star. And then the two arms of the star, I think of it as one kind of reaching back into the past and one reaching forward into the future, like doing the healing work of rewriting that story, those wounds from childhood or from whenever, betrayals, or, all the things that happen to us, healing those wounds, going there, feeling it. And then the arm reaching into the future, a compelling vision for life,
Mm.
something that calls you forward.
There you go, folks. Recipe for a superstar.
There you
And we're
go.
done. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
it's a film. South Street.
Yeah, that was
Well,
great.
Sorry, that
That
was
was
a lot. I didn't
that
intend
no,
to
was
no,
go
great.
through all that.
That's
no,
good.
we
Perfect.
wanted that. We need, like, people need action steps, and you illustrated it way better than an action step. I physically see it. It was beautiful. That was
Thank
Yeah.
you.
wonderful.
That came to
Yeah.
me in a dream too, by the way, that image and that
Mm.
whole model.
Okay. Okay. We're going to come back to the dream part because I want to talk to you. You mentioned alignment and you mentioned kind of going back to the past, but there's a lot of people that will watch this show that want to become professional speakers, or they're new speakers in the industry. What advice do you have for new speakers in the industry that want to make it like their full time or really a big part of their business?
Yeah, well, I mean, my advice is don't. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. What I mean by that is, from the beginning, have a business model that's going to drive consistent recurring
Oh,
revenues, as opposed to trying to make your business model this gig thing
yeah.
of like,
Yes.
that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mistake that I think so many people make in the beginning, is that they think that that model is going to make them happy, is going to make them a lot of money. And it can, but it's rare. It's so rare for a speaker to step into speaking and immediately have the kind of consistent level of bookings to keep you here. And I just think that's so important, at least for me. I don't want to project this onto everybody else, but I know that for me, when I finally stabilized revenues by having back end recurring programs, it gave me the emotional piece, the mental piece, to just be a much happier, healthier person.
So, can you explain a little more? Like, when you look at business models, what's like your opinion on like the best way to have the model set up. Like you do some keynote speaking, you do some
Yes.
coaching, you're back. Like what's a really good model to follow that really will give you the stability and you're not worried about 25K one month, nothing the
Right.
next month, and you're stressed out about how you're going to pay your bills.
Yeah. So in my opinion, okay, humbly, being on a stage is the absolute best marketing strategy for people who enjoy that sort of thing, right? Like being on a stage, like you normally have to pay people to market yourself to others, right? But if somebody's going to pay you or even not pay you to be on a stage in front of an audience, like that's a tremendous marketing opportunity. So my whole thing is find a way to offer more to those audiences on the backside of your speaking. Find a way to continue to add value after you walk off that stage. And then of course there's, the whole conversation about how do you do that without being sleazy, cheesy, salesy, you know, pitch to sell, speak pitching kind of thing, right? I get it. Nobody wants to be that guy or that woman. But, if you can, the thing to remember is that no keynote will ever transform somebody's life
Mhm.
long term. At best, what a keynote can do is open somebody's eyes, give somebody an aha, give somebody an insight. But generally, most of the time, it's not going to really make a lasting impact.
Mhm.
But it can open the door to a lasting transformation. So, what is the actual transformation? And can you provide that? The model that I use is definitely not the only model, but the one that works for me. And I invite each person to look at, well, what would work for you? My model is I speak, I deliver tons of value. And then my invitation is let's connect to see if I have something else for you. No pressure, right? And then there's a lot of tools that can help you do that now, like Talkadot, which is a fantastic tool, by the way.
Yeah.
Amani loves Talkadot. We've
Yeah.
talked about the Talkadot here.
Yeah.
He loves
We
I
have
it.
love
Aurel.
that.
He
We
loves
have
the
Aurel
Talkadot.
coming in August. So yes,
Good.
continue.
Mhm.
So my thing is, I'm not going to go through all the nuts and bolts about how I do this, but ultimately it's a speech into a 3-day
Yeah.
intensive. And my 3-day intensive is virtual now. So it's people can do it from all over the world. And then from there, I have an ongoing 1-year long group coaching program. But I'm a big fan of mastermind as a big back end. I call it a big back end. I love the mastermind model, group coaching model, membership model, subscription model, anything where there's going to be recurring revenue, and that where ideally my favorite, not for everybody, is where I'm building a culture and a community that doesn't necessarily only rely on me, that there's value in the community and the culture that's outside of me.
Yes. Well explained. Mandy, follow up? I mean, I could keep going, but just
Yeah. Well, I have a question about you had founded the Women's Success Summit. So I was curious about what that was. Is it still going? And just the story of that,
Yeah,
because I think
that's a good
people
story.
talk about that. They talk about, hey, I wanna start a conference. I wanna start a summit. And sometimes it's a good idea, and sometimes it isn't. And
It was
sometimes it lasts a
great.
season. So I'm just curious about that.
That's exactly. So I started that in 2010. June of 2010 was my first one, and I did 11 of them.
Mhm.
I did it twice a year in the beginning, and then the last year, I think, for the last couple of years, maybe it was one a year. But I did 11 total from 2000 to 2016 or 17. Um, it was amazing on many levels. It put me on the map in Miami. It gave me credibility, reputation. It started as it was free the first time I did it. I had 600 and something people attend. I had a $35, I think it was, VIP pass for 2 days. I mean, I made my money. I did the model that I had learned at the magazine, which was sponsorships.
yeah.
And the ticket sales were just incidental, like icing on the cake. But over time, I started migrating it, making it smaller, raising the fee, getting more, sponsorship revenue. Did it twice a year, but it was just such a hugely stressful
Yeah.
thing to fill that room. Oh my God. It's a lot of work to fill rooms.
Mhm.
And I just got sick of it. I just got burnt out, on it. So it was beautiful. It was wonderful. I learned how to be on a stage. I learned how to hire speakers. I learned so much.
Mhm.
I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I don't want to ever do that again.
But
Well,
you live and learn, right? Like my mom always says, when we know more, we do better. And
Right.
that's an important part of the process. What is something you learned from that experience that is a thoroughfare for you that is still vibrant in
Oh,
your
I
world
have a great
now?
story.
Oh, let's hear it.
So when remember, I was not in the speaking world. I definitely wasn't in the speaking to sell world or anything. So in my mind, I was putting this event together. I had no budget. So I was getting speakers to speak for free who were my friends, and whatever. So a woman named Eli Davidson. Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to say her name. Eli Davidson found out about my event, that I was bringing 300 very qualified women and I wasn't selling them anything.
Mhm.
She heard about this event, and I get on the phone with her and I was like, "Well, listen, Eli, all I can do is I can cover your travel and your hotel." So I was paying for these speakers, but I wasn't paying them. But I was covering their expenses. She's like, "Oh, wow, that's great. Okay, cool. And would it be okay if I made an offer to your people?" I was like, "Well, okay, I try to keep it so that it's not salesy, but I understand you're a big speaker. So yeah, I'll let you do that." So she comes into my 2-day event where I was too scared to make any offer. This was in 2013. I wasn't selling anything to these people yet. She comes in, she does a 1-hour speech, and at the end, she and the whole thing was pretty much a sales pitch. But at the end, she offered a thing for $1,000, and she sold 30 of them
mm,
Wow, right there, like right on site.
to my audience.
Oh,
yes. Oh,
wow,
those
I
sound
wasn't
wow.
fun.
selling anything to.
And then
Yes.
the well was dry, then you couldn't sell anything, but you weren't selling anything
I
anyways, right?
wasn't offering anything. That was the
Yeah.
big aha moment. It's like, well, if she could sell that, why am I not making an offer to these people that I actually care about and that really want to serve? Like, it was such a mind-blowing experience. And then from then on is where I started making one offer at my event. And that's how I started filling my very first retreats, my first 3-day models. I overlapped my two models for a couple of years. And so I
Mhm.
started using my big event to enroll people into my retreat. And that's how I launched my big backhand program.
So I have a follow-up to that, because why? Because I think this is how you learn this, but why are small events more profitable than bigger events?
You know, I've found in my personal experience that it is just as much work to sell a cheap thing as an expensive thing.
True story. 10 people or 1,000 people, it's all the
Yes.
same work, right?
Pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
I could put 250 people in a room at $100 a piece, or I could put 10 people in a room at $2,500 a piece.
Mhm.
Same amount of money, I think, I think I got that right.
I think your math was mathing
But
correctly.
it's a
Yeah.
whole lot less work to find 10 people who are willing to invest at a high level for a high outcome, you know?
I love that.
So, and the thing is they show up differently. Someone who invests $2,500 versus someone who invested 100.
That's so
And they're
true.
usually a different avatar too.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which
So
is,
for
well, go ahead, Mandy, because
no, I
that's
was gonna
kind of.
say for people out there that are hearing this and they might be speakers or they might be looking to add on to what they're doing, what does it sound like to make an offer on the stage? What does that sound like? What does that pitch feel like
Yeah,
coming
great
from you?
question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Actually, I have a whole outline that I've produced to create, like, here's how you make an offer that
Mhm.
lands well with people, that doesn't feel icky you know. The first thing is I always let people know that an offer's coming
Mm.
at the beginning of the event.
Mhm.
I don't have it be a surprise. I don't have people wondering when is it going to happen, when she's going to try to sell us something. So it starts at the very beginning of the event where I say something along the lines of, so, here's my intention for this weekend. You are going to get an incredible experience. You're going to get this and this and this and this and this. And for some of you, that's going to be plenty, and you're going to go on your way and you're going to go and implement it, and it's going to be fantastic. And there's always a few of you who want more, who want to keep going. So tomorrow around 3 o'clock, I will share what that would look like to keep working together. And for some of you, it'll be great. And for some of you, it's not a fit. And either way is fine. There's absolutely no pressure. So
It's
that's the
good.
first thing I do.
Managing
Mhm.
expectations, that's good. No surprises. Love
Mhm.
that. That's great.
And then at the time that next morning, I'm like, remember, later today is when I'm going to share with you what it would look like to keep working with me. And then when the time comes, I'm like, now I'm going to share with you, as I promised, what it would look like to keep working together. And then I just lay out the offer very simply. I first talk about why I developed this and why it's valuable, what need it fills. I say what the program is, the outcome of it, what's the intention, what's the focus of it. I talk about who it's for and who it's not for, and I set some standards. And then I talk about, the how, like this is what it looks like, very lightly. I don't do the well, when I'm making the offer for, let's say, Inner Circle, it's a very robust program. So I am not going line by line each
Mhm.
thing that it entails. I'm laying out like, hey, the way that we deliver this is through coaching, private coaching with me, and here are all the elements. And if you're interested, the call to action is let's have a conversation. And
Mhm.
if you're not interested, that's fine too. There's no
Mhm.
pressure. So that's basically how I deliver an offer. When I'll be doing a webinar tomorrow night, and when I do a webinar and I'm selling into my 3-day program at the end of the webinar, it's the same thing. It's, I at the beginning I let people know, at the end I'm going to tell you what it would look like to work with me. That one I do lay out very specifically. Here's everything that's included in that one.
That's awesome. I love that you have a system. I love
Mm.
that it's a soft ask, but a soft call to action, but there's still a call to action at the
Oh
end.
yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Great system.
Yeah.
And one thing that I do, because people can feel very excited and very interested, and then if they don't take action, that goes away very quickly.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
never as committed as they are in that moment. So I do offer an incentive to take action sooner rather than later. So I always have the option for people to roll their investment forward into the next thing. So if they're in the 3-day and I'm offering the 1-year program, they can roll that 3-day investment into the 1 year and get a discount,
That's
but
awesome.
only within a certain time frame.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
nice limiter. I love it. So now we're to the point in the show where you can ask myself and Mandy any question you like. Nothing is off limits. You can choose to ask the question to Mandy first or me. Who do you want to ask your question to
Well,
first?
it's actually both of you, because it applies to both of you. I want to know how you guys got together and came up with this show, and it's your 2-year anniversary. So tell me
Yes.
the story.
Okay, Mandy, I answered this. You answered first this time, Mandy. Go
Okay.
ahead.
That's fun. That's fun. We ping back and forth. That's
Back
fun.
and forth. Yes.
This is another great story. It was one of those. My book had come out in 2021, and I did my audio. I take it back. My audio book had come out in April 2022, and I was on the road. I was on a book tour, and all of these people had come up to me to tell me their awful stories and their awesome stories. It was like blood curdling. Here's how I started a business. Here's how I lost a business. Here's my struggles. Here's my triumphs. And as a writer, oh, I think that's my book, Sales Tales. Amani's
Love
holding
it.
it up.
So
And
good.
as a writer, and I'm sure you probably can identify with this, Michelle. I was like, I can't just keep these stories to myself. Should I write about them? Is this another book? I felt so connected to these people all across the country that I wanted to share their stories. So split screen, we're gonna like Happy Days, Ralph and Patsy split screen this for a second. So we're gonna put that there for a second. At the same time, Amani and I were members, we still are members of a trade organization, MPI Southern California. And we had our annual education conference. And somebody had said, I had said, hey, we're talking about registration. And I had said, I was just interviewed on a LinkedIn Live. Why don't we do a weekly LinkedIn Live to boost registration? And someone's like, great idea, Mandy, go for it. And I was like, well, I wasn't saying this is an idea for somebody else. And Amani's like, I'll do it with you because Amani's a live streamer and he knows the live stream thing. And I love to ask questions. So every week for 10 minutes or so for 5 weeks leading up to the conference, we would release a speaker, we would release a philanthropy project. We kind of built up that momentum and got people to sign up for the conference. And it was fun. We had fun doing it, but it was effective too. So then after that happened and then the conference happened, it was a big success. We were like, well, how do we keep working together? How does this end? And then at that same time, we'll go back to the other screen was when I was hearing all these stories. I'm like, I got to share these. So then I asked Amani, I'm like, would you want to do a show about business? Like, I already have some baked in stories from these strangers that I want to share. Do you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how Adventures in Business was born. And we had originally talked about doing it just hospitality industry only because that's sort of where we cut our teeth. And then we were meeting these awesome CEOs and founders and thought leaders in the retail space and the manufacturing space and the PR space. And we were like, everything is a translatable skill and a story that might help somebody. And that's how the guests come about. And
Yeah.
he made a joke about, I met a girl on an airplane and she gave me information about how to do minis. Well, we invited her to come on the show and she was on the show. So getting guests is one of the fun things too. It's like where
Yeah.
you guys met outside of an elevator and here you are not too long later on our show. So, I think that's how it started. And I think that's how the momentum has continued to go too.
Yeah. Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. Well
Yeah.
said.
Mhm.
Nothing to add. What's your follow-up? You have a second question you can ask me.
A
That was
great
well said.
story. I love it. No, that's
Mhm.
fantastic. You followed what I call that following the free energy. When
Mhm.
something's
Mm.
easy, when it's fun, when it's effective, there's free energy there. And I'm a big fan. I learned this from Jake. That was his line. Follow the free energy, and it won't lead you astray.
Yeah.
I feel like what is Jake's company? I feel like we should give him a special shout out. He's so
Oh, Jake, he
impactful.
doesn't do this anymore. Like
Oh.
he ended up they pivoted away from coaching entrepreneurs. That's why we only worked together for 2 years because they pivoted to working with salespeople.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then he ended up selling out his part of the business to the two business partners, and he went on his spiritual quest. But if you look him up, his name's jakemerriman.com. And he
Okay.
Okay.
deserves all the shout outs. He's
Yeah.
a phenomenal human being. And I interviewed him on my podcast.
You did.
So
Awesome.
you can find that interview. It's a great interview, actually. It's one of my better or best ones, I would say. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm. Isn't that fun when it goes there? Like when you just have one of those good interviews, you're just
Yeah.
feeling the vibe. And so you just talked about sales. I want to hang here for a second. You
Sure.
have a philosophy about sales as service. Can you
Yeah.
explain this?
Yeah, this is something I was in sales, as I mentioned, a lot, and I even was doing some sales training. But then when I started working with Jake and Ben and Zach, they had a different approach to sales that works really well in consultative sales, like coach selling, coaching, selling anything where the client is going to be part of the process, right? You're
Mhm.
not just doing a done for you, but you need the client to step up. And so what I learned from them was kind of an interactive sales process that was much more about the client than about the product or the service that we're trying to sell. So from there, I kind of coined the phrase sales as service because for me, it seemed like the sales process itself became part of my value proposition to people. Like I could offer them a strategy session or a discovery call, knowing that whether they bought from me or not, they will be served by that conversation and that it would help
Mm.
them, move forward whether we work together or not. So that's why I called it sales as service, because the idea would be, when you're in service to that degree, you're actually more likely to make a sale. But even if you don't make a sale, you've contributed, you've done something great. And that I believe in, what goes around comes around.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So true.
Now we want to go back to when you were just leaving and graduating from Dartmouth. Okay. And so we want to talk to Michelle from back then, but we want to give the wisdom that we've learned all throughout your time after you left. So what advice would you give your younger self, your 21-year-old self, based on everything you've learned so far in life?
Oh, girl, I would go back and I would say to her, like, remember who you were as a kid and
Mm.
come back to her. That little girl who was producing talent shows in her cousin's basement, inviting all the neighborhood kids to dress up and do dance and roller skating numbers. Like that version of you at 7, 8, 9 years old, that's the real you. Don't forget her. Remember her, bring her along for the ride. Hmm.
Nice. Nice. And then my other question for you would be like, what's next for Michelle? What do you want to accomplish? What's kind of next on your list of things to do?
You know,
Yeah.
what's calling to me right now is more artistry,
Mm.
Mm.
is more of in the world of like, how do I make what I do more theatrical, entertaining, fun, joyful for me and also for audiences. Like I'm feeling very called to develop the book, but I want to fly, to develop that story, to to do more with it and create more things like it. Because I feel that I've had the experience of coaching people for years, and I've also had the experience of doing a 5-minute poem and having all of that coaching kind of get transmitted energetically in a moment, like very quickly. I don't know. It feels like there's something to that. And I don't know exactly what it is, but that's what I'm excited to explore.
It's so funny when you say that. I instantly just visualized a variety show. Like a v like a Villalobos variety show. I don't know why, like, I saw a stage and lights, and I saw, like, not just you, but different people on stage where it's just bright and shiny, and you're impacting people in all these different ways, and it's like a one-nighter variety show. I don't know, take that if
Okay,
you want, but, like,
Mandy,
I literally just saw that when you said
you've
that.
just described my annual event that I just finished 2 weeks ago called Superstar Summit. And I only
What?
yeah. So every year, all of my inner circle clients, we've been gathering since 2017 to prepare and practice and capture on camera a new performance. Last year was the first time we let other people come and watch. And then this year was the second time we did that. And we did it 2 weeks ago. It's if you go to superstarsummit.com, you'll see it. It's still in early stages of figuring out the messaging for people to get it. I
Yeah.
don't think it lands yet, but we had, a good 80 people or so come
I
to
will
the
go to the ne
Mhm.
I
Go to the
love that
next
kind of
one.
stuff. I will
Yes.
go to the next one.
Mhm.
I love that. That's awesome. That's gotta grow. I think there's
Mhm.
your
Yeah, I feel
fly,
like it
there's
does
your
too. I
wings.
gotta figure
Yeah.
out what the messaging is around it because right now the messaging isn't quite right. But what you said, like a variety show, that's kind of right now how I've been positioning it. Like, come and watch 28 speakers in one day do short talks, like TEDx, but with more heart and soul. But that's still not conveying it fully. So that's kind of the inquiry I'm in right now. But that's what I mean about being more theatrical and creative and the artistry. We had 28 speakers, including me, perform all in one day.
That's so
Yeah.
It
awesome.
was
That's
super
Speaking
fun.
speaking
that's
my
so
language of
awesome.
creativity. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mandy, bring us home.
Well, I just wanna touch on your YouTube page really quick. So,
Sure.
tell us your YouTube page, your handle, and then everybody she's got almost 20,000 subscribers. It is so good. It is so educational. So, can you just share your YouTube page and people that are growing their YouTube, visibility, what are some of your best practices or maybe lessons learned you've learned along the way with your YouTube page?
Yeah, well, so my YouTube is very successful in the sense that it drives business. It's one of the three major ways that we generate new opportunities. And it's almost 20,000 subscribers, which is nothing to sneeze at. And it's not huge, but it works. And it works because it's very narrowly focused on our ideal audience. So it's the kind of the some of the strategies which I learned from a guy named Nate Woodbury
Yeah.
from a company called Be the Hero Studios. He's also an
Mhm.
NSA member. And he taught me everything and he produces my channel. So
Mm,
everything I've learned from Nate, and I highly recommend learning from him as well. He wrote a book called Be the Hero, all about YouTube marketing. So, I do long form. That's it right there. Be a hero's guide to influence on YouTube. That's the name of it.
beautiful.
Great
So
book.
for listeners, Amani's holding up a book, an influencer's guide on YouTube. Nate Woodbury. Love that. That's
Nate
great.
Woodbury. And so It's long form, meaning the videos are between 12 and 20 minutes long. Each video answers a specific question that SEO research shows people are asking,
Mm.
word for word. So, how do you start a retreat business? How to launch a retreat, how to charge for a retreat, what to price my retreat at, how to create a group coaching program, how to launch a mastermind group. Every question out there that's relevant to what I do that people are asking, I've answered that question on YouTube, word for word. The title of the video is the question. And that's been the whole strategy for the last 4 years. In a
What were
That's
the,
beautiful.
what were the other two ways that you bring business in or kind of accumulate leads?
Speaking,
Aha.
referrals.
Yes. Perfect. Continue, Mandy. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Well, just remind everybody the name of the YouTube channel.
Superstar Activator. You can
Yes.
either look by name or by Superstar Activator. Both will take you there.
And I think it's scrolling for those of you watching.
Yeah.
It is scrolling underneath the image here, but if you're not watching, it's
Yeah.
just Superstar Activator. So that's
And
great. Thank you. YouTube.
Superstaractivator.com is my website. Oh, yeah, there it is. I see it
yeah.
scrolling now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
YouTube can be a
special,
mystery to a lot of people,
it is.
and I just anytime anybody can give any information that is helpful. So thank you. That's great.
Special
Yeah.
quick shout out to Laura Buchholz. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate
Hi,
that.
Laura.
And so, like, what other ways can we best support you, Michelle?
Oh, you already have, just by having me on your show and
Ah,
me, and you're sending me clips and footage, and you've done so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm
Yes,
good.
yes. It's our pleasure. I can't wait to see you. I'm going to see Michelle in a couple days at NSA, National Speakers Association, the Influence Conference. So excited to see you there and chat some more. And just thank you I love how you focus on the recurring business and love the story that you shared of how it got you to that way, because it's very relatable. And I really believe in recurring business. I'm trying to improve my recurring business. So I pay attention very closely to when you talk. And I just appreciate your perspective on that way of having a company and growing your business.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear
So
that.
with that, we're going to get you back in the green room really quickly, and then we're going to segue our way out. So hold on 1 minute. Round of applause. Thank you so much. You're
yes.
so inspiring. Great talk. So round of applause for Michelle
Thank
here.
you for being here, Michelle. And I love your dreams. There's so much goodness in your dreams. So just keep paying attention to those dreams you're having. It's a
Thank
lot of good
you.
stuff's coming out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Mhm.
All right, Mandy, tell us about the mini that we're going to be watching next week as I'm on assignment. I'll say I'm on assignment in Denver. Talk to us
Mhm.
about that.
You're on assignment. So
Yes.
we recorded a mini about our favorite books or books we're reading right now, and we reviewed our goals. So I don't know if everybody remembers, we got a mini from the beginning of the year where we
Yeah.
talked about our goals, and then we had an update of like how are we on our goals kind of thing. So we're gonna share that mini with everybody. We won't be live next week, and we will return live on the 12th. But if you got a hankering
Yes.
for what we're doing, you can go to Adventures in Business Live on YouTube. You can go to Adventures in Business Live on LinkedIn. You can go to our Instagram page and see a whole bunch of clips as well. So we're just away for a week, but we'll be back on August 12th.
We'll be back on August 12th. I believe we have Marilyn Sherman, another prime and
Do.
phenomenal speaker,
We
on the
do.
12th, who I'll see also in Denver. But please remember to rate, review, subscribe on any platform that you watch or listen to this on. Funny fact, Mandy, one of my other favorite memories of our 2 years is when I was getting construction done on my house during the show.
Oh God, that was ridiculous. That was a fun fact. But I like we did give everybody the disclaimer,
Yeah.
and it was like right at that poignant moment. You asked a great question, and the guest was answering, and then it was like pound,
Oh,
pound,
oh,
pound, pound.
oh,
It was perfect timing. That
oh,
was a
I'll never forget
there.
that. Yes.
There's been a lot of fun facts. I also think one of my favorites was last year for our 1 year anniversary when we interviewed West Side Love. We interviewed Jordan and Tori Stark,
Yeah.
and I was in Ohio visiting my family, and my niece, my 10-year-old niece joined
Yeah.
us on the screen, and I thought she was very shy, so I thought she'd come say hi, and she sat on the screen with us the whole
The
time.
whole
That was
time.
another
That was
special
great.
moment too.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was cool.
All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of the week. We will see you again live in 2 weeks, but tune in next Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock on the West for our mini. And with that, thanks again to our guest, Michelle Villalobos today. Great conversation. Going to rewatch it. And Mandy, I'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon. And thank you everybody for listening and watching for 2 years. We love everybody in the audience and thank you for your suggestions and being great humans. Thank you.
Yeah. Amen.